Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. I used to believe trust was the quiet glue that held two people together. You don't notice it when it's strong. You don't wake up every morning and say, "Thank you for being loyal." You just go on with your life, confident the ground won't give way beneath you. That's what I thought I had with Claire, my fiancée. We'd been together 3 years, living in a townhouse we rented near downtown. We split chores, planned trips, talked about marriage timelines, and kept our finances modest but stable. We weren't perfect, but who is? At least I thought we had honesty, the kind that made small flaws seem irrelevant. Then came the night she said the words that started unraveling everything. "My ex is just a friend. Stop being paranoid." It was a Tuesday evening. She was on the couch, scrolling her phone with a smile that flickered on and off like a candle. I'd noticed it more lately. Her face lighting up, not at something I said, but at something someone texted. I didn't want to be the jealous type. I wanted to be rational, the partner who trusted without peering over shoulders. But that night I asked, "Who keeps texting you this late?" She didn't look up. "It's Jason." The name landed like a dull weight in my stomach. Jason, her ex-boyfriend. They dated in college before me. She always insisted it ended clean, that there was no lingering attachment. I believed her until that moment when I asked, "Why are you talking to him so much?" Her eyes narrowed like I'd just accused her of a crime. "He's a friend, Alex. Just a friend. You're being paranoid." I wanted to let it go. I wanted to swallow the unease, but something inside me pressed forward. "If he's just a friend, then show me your phone." That was when her whole body shifted. She clutched the phone like it was a fragile secret, her fist tightening around it as though handing it over meant handing me something I wasn't supposed to see. "It's a privacy rule," she said sharply, as if reciting a law written in stone. I stared at her, unable to hide the disbelief. "A privacy rule? Between us? Since when?" She stood up, defensive, pacing the room. "Everyone deserves privacy. You can't just demand to look at my phone like I owe you proof." I stayed quiet, but inside, a switch flipped. Privacy in a relationship is one thing, secrecy is another. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't beg or fight. I just nodded and said, "Okay." That was all. But my silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. That night, I lay in bed while she scrolled her phone in the bathroom with the door closed, and I thought about every little sign I'd ignored. The way she turned her screen away when I walked past. The sudden extra girls' nights she claimed. The new perfume she wore even on grocery runs. The laughter that slipped out when she thought I wasn't listening. Each puzzle piece clicked together into a picture I couldn't deny. But instead of lashing out, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to accuse, I wasn't going to play detective and beg her to confess. I was going to give her what she claimed she wanted. Privacy, but on my terms. She thought she was clever, hiding behind that word. She had no idea that by saying it, she'd handed me the key to my revenge. The next day, while she was at work, I began planning. I didn't snoop through her phone. That wasn't the kind of revenge I wanted. I wanted something poetic. Something that made her face the truth without me uttering a single accusation. I dug out an old box from the closet, the one where I kept keepsakes and things most people would throw away. Inside was a folder of printed photos, receipts, little pieces of our relationship I'd held onto over the years. I pulled out a picture of the two of us from our first trip together, smiling by the beach, arms around each other like the world couldn't touch us. I stared at it for a long time, then set it aside. I opened my laptop and started drafting what I would call my privacy rule. It wasn't a rant, not some angry letter. It was simple. A list of everything I'd seen, everything I'd suspected, and a copy of screenshots I'd taken over the last few weeks when her phone lit up with Jason's name while she wasn't looking. I hadn't opened the messages, but I didn't need to. The frequency alone told a story. Alongside those, I added bank alerts. Uber rides billed at odd hours, dinners charged at restaurants she never mentioned. Nothing explicit, nothing cruel. Just facts, plain, undeniable facts. By midnight, I had assembled a quiet arsenal. I didn't show her. Not yet. Instead, I placed the folder neatly on the kitchen table, stacked with a single sheet of paper on top. The title, in bold letters, Privacy Rule Updated. Underneath I had written, "Since privacy is your rule, I've written one for myself. From now on, privacy means I keep my dignity, my trust, and my future away from lies." I didn't sleep much that night. She curled up beside me as if nothing was wrong, as if her secret conversations weren't unraveling the foundation of what we'd built. I lay awake, listening to her steady breathing, wondering if she realized how fragile everything had become. Morning came. I was already downstairs sipping coffee at the table when I heard her footsteps on the stairs. She walked into the kitchen, hair tied back, rubbing her eyes like any other day. Then she froze, her gaze locked on the folder. Her face drained of color, like someone who'd just seen a ghost. "What's this?" she asked, her voice trembling. I leaned back in my chair, calm, collected. "It's my privacy rule," I said evenly. She picked up the top sheet, scanned the words, then flipped through the folder beneath it. Her hands shook as she saw the screenshots, the receipts, the timestamps. Each page told a story she thought she'd hidden. Each page whispered a truth louder than any accusation I could have thrown at her. Her knees buckled slightly, and she pulled out a chair, sitting down without looking at me. Silence filled the room, heavy and undeniable. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally managed, "Alex, it's not what it looks like." I let the corner of my mouth twitch in the faintest smile. "Of course it isn't. It never is. But tell me, do you like it? Do you like my privacy rule?" She looked at me then, wide-eyed, her expression a mix of guilt and panic. For once, she didn't have a defense ready. For once, the truth sat in front of her, impossible to twist. And in that moment, I realized something. Revenge doesn't have to be loud or cruel or dramatic. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is quiet, simple, and undeniable. I stood, picked up my coffee, and left her sitting there with the evidence of her choices staring back at her. I didn't need to shout, I didn't need to chase answers. She already knew the truth, and now so did I. But that was just the beginning. Because what she didn't know was that I had no intention of keeping this private. Claire sat at the kitchen table, staring at the folder like it was a bomb she wasn't sure how to defuse. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She flipped through the pages again, hands trembling, eyes darting between receipts, timestamps, and screenshots. She looked like someone waiting to wake up from a nightmare, only to realize the nightmare was real. Finally, she whispered, "You were watching me." "No," I said calmly, sipping my coffee. "I was watching patterns, and patterns don't lie." Her voice cracked. "Alex, it's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like," I replied, leaning forward just enough to make sure she saw my eyes, steady and unflinching. "You called it privacy, I call it secrecy. There's a difference." She rubbed her temples, breathing unevenly. It's not." I raised a hand to stop her. "Don't insult both of us with half-truths. I don't need you to confess. The facts speak louder than excuses." Her jaw clenched. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to fight back, to hurl blame my way. Then she deflated, sagging into the chair. "I made a mistake," she said finally. "One mistake is forgetting an anniversary," I answered. "This was a series of choices. You made them. Now you live with them." She looked at me, eyes glassy, and whispered, "Are you leaving me?" I let the silence stretch. She needed to feel its weight. Then I said, "I haven't decided yet. But know this. I won't stay with someone who treats loyalty like an option. Whatever happens next depends on how honest you are, starting now." She swallowed hard. "It started a few months ago." He reached out. At first it was just catching up. Then it turned into late-night talks. I told myself it was harmless, but it wasn't. I let it go too far. "Too far," I repeated, the words bitter in my mouth. "And you would have kept it hidden if I hadn't asked to see your phone." She looked down, ashamed. "I was afraid of losing you." I almost laughed. "You were afraid of losing both of us, me and him. You wanted to have both worlds, but it doesn't work like that." She didn't argue. She just sat there, silent tears slipping down her face. I stood, collected the folder, and tucked it under my arm. I'll be staying at a friend's for a while. You can keep the house until we figure things out. But don't mistake my calm for weakness. You wanted privacy. Now you'll learn what privacy feels like when I step out of your life. Her face went pale. Alex, please, don't do this. We can fix it. I looked at her, and for a moment, I almost softened. Almost. But then I remembered the way she clutched her phone, the smug look when she said, "It's a privacy rule." That image burned away any trace of sympathy. "I'll let you know when I've decided what comes next," I said, and walked out the door. The cool morning air hit my face, crisp and liberating. I drove aimlessly for a while, letting the road clear my head. My phone buzzed again and again with messages from her. "I'm sorry. Please come back. It didn't mean anything. We can work through this." I didn't reply. Words meant nothing now. Only actions would. By afternoon, I parked in front of my friend Daniel's apartment. He'd been my closest friend since high school, the kind of guy who saw through nonsense in an instant. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and said, "What happened?" I told him everything. The text, the phone, the folder, her reaction. He listened without interrupting, which was the best thing anyone could have done. When I finished, he shook his head. "You know what this means, right?" he said. "That she broke my trust?" I asked. "That you hold all the power now," he replied. "She thought she could play both sides, but she underestimated you. Now it's your move." I nodded slowly. He was right. This wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about control, about showing her that betrayal has consequences she couldn't laugh off. Over the next few days, I began to notice her unraveling. She called me repeatedly, left voicemails where her confident tone had been replaced with desperation. She showed up at Daniel's once, standing outside until I refused to answer the door. She texted, "You're overreacting, it was just talking." Then, 5 minutes later, "I'll do anything, please don't leave me." But I didn't cave. I wanted her to sit with the silence, the absence of my presence in her life. I wanted her to realize that when you gamble with loyalty, you lose more than you think. Meanwhile, I started preparing the second phase of my plan. The folder on the table had shaken her, but I wanted something lasting, something that would linger. She had introduced secrecy into our relationship. I would answer with transparency, on my terms. I contacted a mediator and scheduled an appointment. When I told her about it, she panicked. "A mediator? For what?" "For what comes next," I said calmly. "Whether that's a breakup or an attempt to salvage this, it'll be decided in a room where truth isn't optional." She showed up to the session wearing her best innocent face, but it crumbled the moment I laid out the evidence. The mediator listened quietly, then turned to her. "Is any of this untrue?" She stammered, tried to spin it, but in the end she admitted enough to seal her fate. She looked at me, eyes pleading, but I kept my expression neutral. "I told you," I said softly. "You wanted privacy. Now you're watching it close in on you." After the session, she begged me in the parking lot. "Alex, please, I can change. Don't throw us away." I looked at her for a long time. Part of me still hurt, still wanted to believe in the girl I fell in love with. But the stronger part knew better. Trust, once broken, doesn't return the same. It comes back jagged, sharp, dangerous to hold. "I'm not throwing us away," I said finally. "You did." And with that, I walked away, leaving her standing there in the cold evening air. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Not yet. Revenge isn't just about leaving someone behind. It's about leaving them with the weight of their own choices. And Claire hadn't felt the full weight yet. That night, as I lay in Daniel's guest room, I drafted the final step of my plan. The one that would make sure she never forgot the day she tried to hide behind a privacy rule. And when the morning sun rose, I was ready. The morning I decided to end it for good, the sky was gray, the kind that makes you feel like the world is holding its breath. I'd been staying at Daniel's for nearly a week. Each night, I lay awake in the guest room, scrolling through half-written emails, drafts of messages I never sent, and the folder of evidence that sat neatly on my laptop. Every time my phone buzzed, it was her, pleading, bargaining, apologizing. Some messages long, spilling out paragraphs about how she'd lost her way. Others short, desperate. "Please, I can't breathe without you." But the silence between us had become my ally. The more I ignored, the more frantic she became. And the more frantic she became, the clearer it was she wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she got caught. I wanted closure. But more than that, I wanted her to understand consequences. She'd hidden behind the phrase, "privacy rule," like it was some shield she could wave in my face. I was going to show her what a real rule looked like, one she couldn't bend or twist. That morning, I printed everything again, receipts, screenshots, her words scribbled in my notes. I slipped them into a new folder, cleaner, sharper than the one I'd left on the kitchen table. On the cover, I wrote, "Final Privacy Rule." At noon, I drove back to our townhouse. She was waiting on the porch, pacing like a caged animal. The moment she saw me, her face lit up with relief, as though my presence meant forgiveness was on its way. "Alex," she breathed, hurrying toward me. I held up a hand. "Inside." She followed me in without protest. The house smelled faintly of lavender, her attempt, no doubt, to make things feel warm and safe. But safety was gone. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place this all started, and I set the folder between us. Her hands twitched as she reached for it. "What is this?" "Your closure," I said simply. She opened it, scanned the pages, and her expression crumbled. These weren't the same as before. These included a timeline. Every Uber receipt matched to the same evenings she claimed to be with friends. Every late-night message notification paired with notes on her behavior the following day. It was clinical, undeniable. Her lips trembled. "You tracked everything." "I didn't need to," I said calmly. "You left the trail yourself. I just collected it." Tears welled in her eyes. "I told you I was wrong. I told you I wanted to fix it." "And I told you trust doesn't return once you've buried it under lies," I replied. "But this isn't about me anymore. It's about you learning what privacy costs." Her breathing quickened. "What do you mean?" I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. "I've spoken with the landlord. The lease is in my name. You'll have until the end of the month to move out. The mediator has drafted the separation agreement. Financially, you'll get a fair share of what we built together, but nothing more. You won't drag me down, and you won't benefit from what you tried to destroy." Her face went pale. "Alex, you can't just erase me." "I'm not erasing you," I said evenly. "I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. Privacy. You wanted a separate world I couldn't touch. Now you'll live in it." Her hands covered her face, muffling a sob. "Please, don't do this. I love you." The words hit me like static, sound without meaning. "No," I said quietly. "You loved options, and now you've run out." She collapsed against the table, shoulders shaking. I stood, collected the folder, and slipped it back under my arm. "This copy stays with me," I said, "not as a weapon, as a reminder." She looked up, eyes red. "A reminder of what?" "That calm is stronger than chaos," I replied. "And that sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting or exposing or destroying. It's walking away whole while the other person drowns in their own mess." I walked to the door. She didn't follow. For the first time, she had no defense, no argument, no clever words to buy her more time. The silence was hers now, not mine. That evening, back at Daniel's, I sat on the balcony with a notebook. I wrote one word at the top of the page: ledger. Under it, I listed what I'd kept: my dignity, my future, my peace. Then I listed what I'd lost: her. The balance was clear. I'd come out ahead. Weeks passed. She moved out quietly, boxes carried by friends I didn't recognize. There was no dramatic scene, no confrontation, just absence. She vanished into the privacy she valued so much, and me? I rebuilt, slowly, carefully. Work became steadier, friendships deeper. I found joy in small routines: morning coffee without tension, evenings without suspicion. One day, months later, I got a message from an unknown number. For a moment, my chest tightened, thinking it was her again. But the words were different. "She's out of your life. You did the right thing. A friend." I never found out who that friend was. Maybe someone who knew Jason. Maybe someone who saw what I couldn't. But it didn't matter. Their job was done. And so was mine. Looking back, I don't think of it as revenge in the traditional sense. I didn't humiliate her publicly, didn't torch her reputation, didn't seek to wound her beyond repair. What I did was more powerful. I gave her exactly what she claimed to want, and in doing so, I showed her the cost of dishonesty. She thought privacy was a shield. I turned it into a mirror, and when she looked into it, she couldn't stand what she saw. That was the end of our story. Not with shouting, not with violence, but with calm, deliberate truth. And sometimes that's the kind of ending that lasts the longest.